The sky was burning. Darren's shuttle spun out of control, alarms screaming in his ears. The glass in front of him was cracked. Smoke poured from the control panel. His hands were shaking, trying to keep the ship steady, but it was no use. "Mayday. Mayday," he shouted into the radio. "This is Recon Unit 47, engine failure, crashing on uncharted moon coordinates." Then everything went black. The impact was hard. The ship hit ground with a deep crunch, metal twisting like paper. And somehow, he was still alive. Darren opened his eyes slowly. His head throbbed. His vision was blurry. Sparks flew from a shattered panel. The front of the ship had broken open, leaving jagged edges and a trail of smoke curling into the alien sky. He coughed and pulled himself up. Everything hurt. He checked his gear. His helmet was cracked. One boot was missing, and his cums were fried. "Great," he muttered. He climbed out of the wreckage, boots crunching over burnt sand and broken parts. Around him was a dead wasteland. No trees, no water, just sharp rocks, orange dust, and silence. Far away, something moved behind. Ridge Duran didn't see it, but she did. Her name was Kalira. She had watched the sky rip open as the strange object fell, trailing fire like a dying star. She knew what it was. A human ship, and humans weren't welcome here. They brought war, they brought machines, and sometimes they brought death, but the crash had drawn her anyway. Not out of curiosity, but something deeper, something she didn't understand. Darren tried to walk, but the pain in his side stopped him. He sat down and pulled off his torn jacket. His chest was red with bruises, but there was no blood. He touched the skin near his collarbone and flinched. There was something etched into his skin, something glowing. It wasn't a wound. It wasn't a tattoo. It was a mark, round, alien-looking, softly pulsing with blue light. He froze. What the hell? He didn't remember how it got there. That's when Kalira approached. He heard footsteps, soft and careful. He turned fast, grabbing a broken pipe to defend himself. But he froze when he saw her. She wasn't human. Tall, elegant, silver markings on her skin. Eyes violet like dusk. Hair long and braided with tiny crystal beads. She didn't raise a weapon, she just stared at his chest. Her eyes widened in fear. She ran toward him. And before he could stop her, she grabbed his shirt and ripped it open. He gasped. "Hey, what? Are you?" Then she stopped moving. Her hands trembled over the glowing mark on his chest. She looked up at him like she was seeing a ghost. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Darren pushed her back gently, confused. "What are you talking about? What is this thing on me?" Kalira stepped away, eyes wide, her breathing quickened. "That mark, ... that's forbidden. It belonged to the ones who destroyed our stars." "I don't know what it is," Duran said quickly. "It just appeared one day during a mission. I touched some kind of relic, it burned into my skin. I never told anyone." Kalira stared at him. Her people told stories about that mark. Stories of war, of planets turned to ash. Anyone who wore it was a monster. But Darren's eyes weren't cruel. He looked just as scared as she felt. Suddenly, a sharp beep sounded from Kalira's wristband. She checked it, and her face went pale. "Others are coming." "What others?" Duran asked. She looked at him. "Hunters. They track that mark. They'll kill you. I'm not one of them. They won't care." She turned, grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. "Come with me now." Darren hesitated. He didn't know this woman. He didn't know this planet. But one thing was clear. He was being hunted, and the only one helping him was someone who should have hated him. He nodded. "Lead the way." They ran across the cracked land, wind blowing dust into their faces. Behind them, the wrecked shuttle burned quietly above. In the dark clouds, a new ship entered orbit. No lights. No flag, just shadow. And inside it, someone smiled coldly. "The marked one is here," the voice said. "Bring him to me." Kalira led him deep into the canyon. The rock walls grew tall on both sides, hiding them from the sky. Duran kept glancing over his shoulder, expecting to see another ship, another enemy. Another reason not to trust her. But all he saw was dust and silence, and her. She didn't speak. She didn't slow down. Just kept walking like she already knew the path in her bones. After what felt like an hour, they reached a narrow tunnel hidden behind a pile of jagged stones. Kelly ducked inside first. Darren hesitated, then followed. The tunnel was dark and cold. Lights flickered on as she passed, old tech that reacted to her presence. The walls were carved with symbols, smooth, circular patterns. He didn't recognize them, but something deep inside him did. The mark on his chest pulsed softly under his shirt. He didn't like it. The tunnel led to a large room hidden beneath the canyon. It looked like a mix of a shelter and a shrine. Old tech blinked faintly along the walls. Crates, food, tools. Kalira had been living here. She turned to him at last. "You shouldn't be alive," she said. Duran raised an eyebrow. "Nice too." "Meet you too. I'm serious," she said, stepping closer. "That mark, it, should have killed you. It burns into the skin of invaders, war makers, but you're not like them." "I don't even know what this thing is," Darren replied. "I touched an artifact on a derelict station 6 months ago. I thought it was just broken junk." She shook her head. "That wasn't junk. That was a memory core. Activated something ancient." Darren pulled off his shirt slowly and looked down. The mark was glowing again, brighter than before. It looked like a ring of curved lines, circling a smaller triangle. Almost like an eye. Alien, strange, but somehow familiar. Kalira's face hardened. That symbol belonged to the Eldrin. "Never heard of them." "You wouldn't," she said. "They're gone. Wiped out thousands of years ago. My people called them gods, then called them monsters." Darren looked up. "They gave us technology, promised peace. But behind that, they used us, took what they wanted, then burned our planets when we fought back." She pointed to the mark. "That was the brand they left behind. For anyone they wanted to own." Darren's stomach turned. "So why do I have it?" Kalira studied him for a long time. "I don't know. But if the wrong people see it, they'll kill you. Or worse, they'll try to use you." She moved toward a console in the corner and pressed a few buttons. A hologram lit up. It showed a symbol exactly like the one on Duran's chest. It was burned into a stone wall, surrounded by fallen bodies. "The last time that mark appeared," Kalira whispered, "it triggered a war so big, for systems went dark forever." Darren sat down on an old crate, trying to process everything. A forgotten alien race. A war. A mark that shouldn't exist now glowing on his body. "I'm just a recon pilot," he said quietly. "I scan planets. I don't start wars." Kalira looked at him. "Maybe you didn't choose this. Now you carry it." Suddenly, a beeping sound filled the room. Kalira rushed to the console. A red light blinked on the radar screen. 3 small ships. Entering the atmosphere, her face went pale. "They found us." Darren stood. "The hunters." She nodded. "They must have tracked your crash signal." Can grabbed his jacket and checked the old pistol on his hip. "I'll distract them." "Escape." Kalira grabbed his arm. "No, you don't understand. They don't want you dead, yet they want the mark. They think it holds power. Does it?" "I don't know," she said. "But you can't fall into their hands. If they unlock what's inside you, what the Eldrin left behind, more than just planets will burn." Darren's voice was calm. Now, focused. "Then we need to run now." Kalira looked at him closely. She had hated humans for so long. But now, standing beside this one with the past burning on his skin and fear in his eyes, something changed inside her. She no longer saw him as a threat. She saw him as a key to answers to the past, to survival. Outside, the sky lit up again. 3 hunter ships broke through the clouds, dark, silent, fast inside one of them. A bounty leader stared at a glowing tracker. "The marked one is close," he said, "alive." He smiled. "Let's bring back a god." The dust storm rolled in just before dawn. Thick winds, red sky. air so dry it cracked the lips and stung the eyes. Perfect weather to cover a hunt. Kalira stood at the edge of the canyon, cloak wrapped tightly around her. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon. The radar showed 3 incoming heat signatures, fast and sharp. Just like she feared, they're closing in, she said. Duran joined her, eyes narrowed. Do they know exactly where we are? She shook her head. Not yet, but they will. He checked his old sidearm, low power, half charged. That won't stop a mercenary. She agreed, but the canyon might. They packed fast. Kalira stuffed what she could into a small pack, medical tools, dried rations, 1 broken drone. Darren grabbed her second blaster and tossed it to her. She caught it, surprised. You trust me with this? I crashed. You patched me up. Then you saved me from alien bounty hunters, he said. Yeah, I trust you. She allowed herself the smallest smile. They left the shelter through the back tunnel Kalira's escape route. The rocks above them began to shake faintly. The enemy had landed, far above. The leader of the hunter team stepped out of his sleek black ship. He wore smooth armor, built to kill and built to intimidate. His helmet locked onto the heat traces below. They're moving. Underground, he growled. Seal the exits. Drive him out. 2 smaller hunters nodded and vanished into the dust. Kalira and Darren slipped into a deeper cave. The walls here were older, carved by hands long gone. Strange markings covered the stone. Daron brushed his fingers over them. It looked like the mark. Kalira nodded. This was once a temple. My people used to pray here long ago. Then the Eldrin came, and everything changed. Darren pulled back his shirt slightly. The glowing symbol on his chest shimmered brighter in the dark. It's reacting to the walls, he whispered. And then he heard it. A voice, soft, ancient, not in words. But something older like memory turned into sound. He stumbled, gripping the wall. Did you hear that? Kalira shook her head. Hear what? The voice came again. A whisper inside his mind. Return to the gate. Restore the silence. You carry the last light. Then it faded. Darren stood straight, breathing heavy. Kalira looked worried. Are you all right? Yeah, I think the mark is trying to tell me something. Or control you, she said. Maybe, he admitted. But if it is, why would it warn me? Suddenly, a blast echoed from above. The tunnel had been breached. Kalira grabbed his hand. No time. We move now. They raced through the underground maze, feet slamming stone. Heartbeats pounding in their ears. Behind them, Mako's boots. Shouts a warning shot sizzled past them, hitting the cave wall with a spark. They're in the tunnels. Darren shouted. Kale Ira yanked him into a side passage. Follow me, I know another way out. But it was too late. They reached a dead-end chamber wide, ancient, and silent. A hunter stepped through the other entrance. His rifle pointed at Daron. Kalira raised her weapon, but she was fast, not foolish. One wrong move would get them both killed. The hunter didn't shoot. He stepped closer. He looked at Darren, the glowing symbol on his chest. Well, the hunter said, you really are marked. Darren stood still. What do you want? Same thing everyone wants, the hunter replied. Power, legacy, answers. The symbol on Darren's chest pulsed harder, brighter, and then something strange happened. The walls of the ancient chamber began to glow. Soft blue lines lit up across the stone, matching the symbol on Duran's skin. The hunter stepped back. What is this? Kalira whispered. It's a memory room. The mark, ... it's waking it up. Suddenly, a pulse of energy exploded from Darren's chest. It wasn't fire. It wasn't lightning. It was light, pure and blinding. The hunter screamed. Thrown backward against the wall, his rifle clattered to the ground. The ancient walls shimmered as if remembering something. Visions flashed across the room. Cities in the clouds, alien ships rising like gods. A war that shattered planets, a single Eldrin priest. Placing the mark on a Huma then, it was gone. Daron dropped to his knees. Kalira rushed to him. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. That wasn't just history. That was a message. She looked back at the glowing walls. Did it say? Duran looked up at her, eyes burning with new purpose. It said, "I'm the last voice of a dead empire. And someone out there still wants me silent." Behind them, the hunter groaned, trying to stand. Kalira aimed her weapon. He froze. She said coldly, "If you ever find us again, you won't walk away." They escaped through the collapsing tunnel outside. The dust storm still raged, but Darren's path was clear now. He wasn't just running. He was carrying a forgotten truth, and someone out there wanted that truth buried forever. Asterisk they traveled. For 2 days through a dying desert, no roads, no maps, just whispers. Darren didn't know how he knew the way. Sometimes he saw shapes in the dust. Sometimes he heard voices in the wind, ancient and strange, like broken music. And always the mark on his chest pulled him forward. Kalira watched him quietly. She said nothing. She had never seen anyone walk like that before. No, not even a priest of her own people. Not with fear, but with purpose. They reached a rocky ridge just before sunset. Below it lay a wide basin of cracked land, shaped like a perfect circle. At the center, a massive stone ring, half buried under the sand. The edges glowed faint blue. Beneath the dust, Kalira's voice broke the silence. "I've only heard of this. In myths, a door to the Eldrin's final temple. But no one's ever found it." Darren stepped toward it. "I didn't find it," he said. "It called me." They walked down carefully, the ground humming beneath their boots. Kalira knelt at the edge of the ring, brushing away dirt and time. Strange markings circled the stone's same shape. As the one on Darren's chest, he touched the edge. Nothing happened then. He stepped into the center, and everything changed. The stone ring lit up. Every line glowing bright blue. The sand began to shake, the ground split, and the floor beneath them lowered. Like an elevator hidden for thousands of years, Kalira grabbed. "His arm? Are we going underground?" "I think we already are," he whispered. The platform stopped deep below. They now stood in a dark chamber larger than a city hall. Pillars rose like bones from the ground. Giant crystal screens flickered to life around them. Symbols floated. In the air, the room didn't feel abandoned. It felt like it had just been sleeping, and now it was awake. Kale Ira stepped forward carefully. "This isn't a tomb. It's a command center. For what?" Darren asked. She looked around. "Don't know, but I think it was built to listen." He moved toward a raised platform and placed his palm on a circular stone. The mark on his chest pulsed in sync. A voice spoke from above, clear and echoing. "Authorization recognized. Final witness confirmed." Kalira flinched. "It's speaking your language," Darren said softly. "It's speaking. Directly into our minds?" The voice continued. "Welcome, bearer of the legacy. Accessing memory vault. Preparing final directive." A giant crystal in the center of the chamber lit up. Images appeared around them, floating, live, moving. Civilizations flying between stars. Eldrin engineers placing marks on chosen beings, human. Test subjects in golden chambers, a war breaking. Out among the Eldrin themselves, then came one final image, a man. Not an alien, human. He had the same mark as Darren. He was standing in this very room thousands of years ago, and he said one thing: "One day another will come. Not to conquer, but to remember." Then everything faded. Darren fell to his knees. He couldn't breathe for a second. His chest burned not with pain, but with truth. "I'm not the first," he whispered. "I'm the last." Kalira knelt beside him. "You were chosen, maybe not by fate, but by history." Suddenly a shrill noise rang out, high-pitched and sharp. Kalira ran to the console. Her eyes widened. "They found us again," she said. "The hunters tracking the energy pulse." "How long? Minutes?" Duran stood, steady now. "Then let's show them what this place was built for." He stepped onto the platform again. The mark glowed brighter than ever, now white-hot. Symbols lit across the walls. The room responded to him like he was part of it. A defense system came online. Blue shields flared around the entrance. Energy weapons rose from hidden slots in the floor. But Duran didn't feel fear anymore. He felt command. Outside the temple, the lead hunter dismounted from his ship. He saw the glowing crater. He smiled. So, the last key finally turned the lock. His team moved forward, but as they reached the edge of the ground, beneath them pulsed, and the temple spoke through the air. "You are not welcome," and the sand exploded in light. Inside, Duran looked at Kalira. "Let's finish this." Shh, gave him a sharp nod. "What now?" "We find out why I was marked, why they want it so badly, what this temple was truly built to protect." Kalira's voice was quiet. "You're not just a soldier anymore." He stared at the chamber, around them alive, ancient and waiting. "No," he said, "I'm a key that shouldn't exist." The ground shook. Screams echoed through the lower tunnels of the ancient temple. The sky above was glowing red. Darren and Kelleroth stood back, two back weapons ready, breaths sharp, hearts pounding. The hunters had breached the defense grid. And someone had helped them. Just 1 hour ago, the temple had felt like a lost relic, a memory buried in stone. Now it felt like a war zone. Kalira crouched behind a broken pillar, blaster warm in her hand. Her left arm was bleeding from a grazed shot. She didn't flinch. Across the platform, Duran ducked under an energy beam and fired back, taking out one of the invaders. The mark on his chest glowed with each heartbeat, as if the temple itself was reacting to his pain, his focus. "They're coming in waves," he shouted. Kalira nodded. They brought more than just guns. They brought someone who knew the layout. Then, the voice rang through the chamber, smooth, cold, familiar. "Drop your weapons, Kalira. It's been a long time." She froze. Her breath caught. She knew that voice. From the shadows stepped a tall alien male, armored in black. His eyes were silver, but they held no warmth, only control. Commander Valson, Kalira's former mentor, and her people's betrayer. "You sold us," she whispered, rising slowly. "I saved us," Valson said. "I gave them something they couldn't take, obedience. And in return, I lived." "You handed over our cities," she growled. "Our children." Valson's lips curled into a half-smile. "And yet here you are alive, standing beside a human with a living Eldrin brand. I taught you better." Duran stepped forward. "You're the one who sent the hunters." Valson nodded. "Of course. That mark on your chest isn't just history. It's a key to Eldrin archives. Memory, weapon blueprints, data from before your species crawled out of caves." "I don't want your weapons," Duran said coldly. "I want the truth." "That's what I'm afraid of," Valson replied. He raised a small cube in his hand, dark, humming with unstable energy. Kalira gasped. "That's a memory eraser." Valson smiled. "Very good. This little thing can wipe out any living record, even the temple's core." He turned to Duran. "So, here's my offer. Come with me. Give me the mark willingly. Or I destroy this place. Your history, your legacy. Everything that makes you special." Darren said nothing. The temple lights dimmed slightly, like it was holding its breath. Then Darren looked at Kalira. She met his eyes and nodded. Darren stepped forward, hands up. "All right," he said, "take me." Velson looked pleased. Wise choice. He walked toward Darren, holding out a control device to begin the transfer. But just as he reached him, Darren grabbed his wrist and twisted hard. The cube fell. Kalira dove forward, caught it midair, rolled, and fired a shot directly into Velson's leg. He screamed and fell to one knee. Daron grabbed the control device and smashed it on the ground. "No more control," said. "Not from you, not from the past." It's a temple. Lit up walls, glowing, floors shaking. Darren stood in the center of the platform as the mark on his chest surged. Symbols spun around him in a storm of light. Kalira watched in awe. He wasn't just reacting to the temple anymore. He was commanding it. A voice spoke again, deep. "Full of power, memory secure, corruption rejected." Truth ready to be released. Valsen crawled away, wounded, snarling, "You fool. You don't know what you're unlocking?" Darren's eyes locked on him. "I don't need to know everything. I just need to make sure people like you never bury it again." With a flash, the temple broadcasted a message through space. Ancient records, lost truths, a history of the Eldrin, of betrayal, of how humans were once chosen not as soldiers, but as witnesses, chosen to remember, not to rule. Far away, in deep space, satellites picked up the signal. Forgotten civilizations heard it. Alien resistance groups listened, and for the first time in centuries they believed. Back in the temple, Kalira knelt beside Valsen. She said nothing, just looked at him with cold eyes. He whispered, "You're just like them now." She replied, "I finally understand what they were trying to teach us." Later, after the battle ended and the hunters fled, Kalira and Darren stood at the entrance of the temple. Now quiet again. "You could have run," she said. "I almost did," Darren admitted. "But," he smiled, "you were the only one who didn't treat me like a curse." Kalira looked at the stars. "The message is out now. The truth is out." Darren nodded. "Let's see who answers." Asterisk, the stars above them looked closer, now like they were listening. Darren sat alone near the heart of the temple, where the light from the mark on his chest pulsed against the walls. The ancient structure was silent, but alive, like it was waiting for him to understand. He closed his eyes and let the warmth spread through his chest. He wasn't scared anymore, not of the mark, not of the hunters, not of what he might become. Kalira walked in quietly. She had cleaned her wounds, changed into a fresh cloak, and tied her hair back. But her face still showed the weight of everything they had uncovered. "The hunters are gone," she said, and Valsen's transmission was jammed. "You won't get far limping across a desert." Duran didn't look at her. He was focused on the temple and what it had started showing him. "I saw something else," he whispered. After the signal went out, Kalira stepped closer. "What did you see?" He turned to her, his eyes glowing faintly with the same blue as the mark. "Not war," he said. "Not weapons." He touched his chest. "This wasn't built for destruction. It's not a brand. It's not a key. It's a message." Kalira looked confused. "A message? For who?" "For all of us." He stood up and walked to the central console, placing his hand on the surface. The stone rippled like water. Then a hologram appeared, not of a battle, but of a library. Thousands of glowing fragments floated around them, stars, languages, voices, histories. Darren's voice was quiet. "This is everything the Eldrin learned before they disappeared. The rise and fall of civilizations, the mistakes, the peace treaties, the broken promises." Kalira's eyes widened. "You're telling me that Mark holds all of that?" Duran nodded. "They chose humans to carry it, not because we were strong, but because we were new. We had no history with them. It's no bias, just eyes open wide enough to remember everything." Kalira looked away for a moment. "My people were told we were worthless without the Eldrin's guidance." Duran stepped closer. "They wanted us to think that. All of us." "But why?" she asked. He sighed. "Because memory is dangerous. If we remember the past, we won't repeat it. If we remember the lies, they can't control us. This markets truth, Kalira. Truth that was never meant to survive." Just then, the temple shook slightly. Kalira stiffened. "What was that?" Darren checked the console. A soft red light flashed on the corner of the screen. He read it aloud. "Second vault signal detected. Coordinates locked." Kalira blinked. "There's more?" Darren nodded slowly. "Another memory core. Maybe another temple. Somewhere else in the galaxy." The map zoomed out, showing a distant moon near a red star. Then the screen faded again. Kalira placed a hand on his arm. "You don't have to keep chasing this. You've already done more than anyone ever asked." Darren looked at her. "I never asked for this, Mark," he said. "But now that I have, I can't ignore what it's trying to show us. If we don't bring these memories back, someone else will bury them again." She stared into his eyes, into the quiet fire burning there. "You're not the same man who fell from the sky," she said softly. Darren smiled. "Good. That guy was lost." They walked out of the chamber together, toward the surface. The desert was still waiting. The night was cool. Stars shimmered across the black sky like diamonds. Their ship sat nearby, repaired, fueled, and ready. Rain, the orphaned alien boy they rescued during the earlier skirmish, ran up to them, holding a small transmitter he had fixed. "It works," he shouted proudly. "We can talk to other planets now." Duran knelt beside him. "Can it reach the outer moons?" Ray nodded. "Anywhere." Ruffled his hair. "Good. Let's start telling the truth." Back inside the ship, as Keller plotted the course, Duran stood alone near the viewport. He looked down at the mark once more. It wasn't glowing now, just resting. Breathing with him, not a weapon, not a curse, just a promise left behind by a dying race, hoping someone would care enough to carry it. As the ship lifted off, cutting through the sky, Kalira stood beside him. "What happens if we find the second vault?" Darren looked out at the stars. "Then we find the third, right, and the fourth, until the whole galaxy remembers who it used to be and who it could still become." Kalira smiled faintly. "And if the hunters follow us?" Darren turned to her. "Then we remind them." He tapped his chest where the mark was. This was never about power. It was always about memory. The stars were no longer silent. Signals had started answering Darren's broadcast. From mining colonies, broken warships, din-resistant stations, the forgotten were waking up, and the message was always the same. "We heard you." Darren stood on the bridge of the old freighter they'd claimed from a mercenary wreck. The ship was patched together, nothing fancy, but it flew. Kalira sat at the console beside him, guiding the vessel toward the next vault, the third one. Rain, the young alien boy they'd rescued, was curled up near the power coil, fast asleep with a datapad in his hand. He'd been reading every archive the temple had downloaded into their system. The boy had started dreaming again, so had the galaxy. Kalira looked over at Duran, her voice low. "There's unrest building on the outer systems. You lit a fire?" Duran didn't take his eyes off the star ahead of them, the red giant that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. "I didn't mean to start a war." "You didn't," she said. "You started a memory. Some people don't want to remember." He nodded. It was true, since the first vault had opened. More people had begun asking questions about their leaders, about the Eldrin, about what had really happened to entire races that vanished without reason, and some of those in power had already tried to silence it all again. Duran reached under his shirt, touched the mark. It no longer glowed unless he called it. It was quiet now. It was always there, waiting. He wasn't the same recon pilot who had crash-landed in the dust weeks ago. He had become something else. Not a hero, not a chosen one, just a reminder that the truth always survives. If someone is willing to carry it, the ship landed on a broken moon, quiet and gray. The third vault lay beneath a collapsed city, once Eldrin, now buried in time. Kalira and Duran descended through cracked stone, guiding Rain behind them. As they reached the inner chamber, the mark on Darren's chest glowed once more. The walls lit up, but this time a choice appeared. A hologram formed above them. An Eldrin voice echoed through the room. "Final witness has reached the threshold. You may now choose. Restore the forgotten, or let it remain buried." Kalira looked at him sharply. "What does that mean?" The walls around them showed two paths. One led to a full release, every secret, every hidden truth, every record, broadcast across the galaxy. The other would lock the archives, sealing the knowledge forever unless someone else found the key. In another 1,000 years, Duran stood frozen. He had thought that mission was simple, carry the truth. But now he saw what that really meant. Not everyone was ready to face what the Eldrin had done. The wars they started, the manipulations, the betrayals. And the truth would shatter empires, break alliances, reveal who sold whose future for survival. "Maybe," he whispered, "some things are better left hidden." Kalira looked at him. "If you don't send it, someone else will try again. Later, maybe they'll use it the wrong way. And if I do send it, he asked, how many will burn? Rain stepped forward quietly. He looked up at Darren. People deserve to know who they are. Darren looked down at the boy, at the same small hands that had fixed the transmitter. The same child who once begged for food outside a ruined city, that child had a right to the truth. All of them did. He stepped onto the center platform. The mark burned bright, and the voice spoke once more. Confirm broadcast. Darren exhaled. Confirm. A surge of light exploded upward, beaming into the sky, bouncing from satellite to satellite. Spreading across systems in that moment, every vault opened. The hidden truths of thousands of years, the real story of the Eldrin, the suppressed rebellions, the lies behind the borders and treaties all released. It wasn't fire, it wasn't war, it was truth. And it traveled faster than bullets. People in every corner of space stopped to listen. On warships, in slums, in council chambers, and slowly the silence began to break. Back in the vault, Kalira placed her hand over Darren's chest. Over the now's leaping mark, you did it, she whispered. Darren looked tired, but there was peace in his voice. No, he said. We all did. Later, as they returned to the ship, Rain looked up. Does this mean we won? Darren smiled. It means we finally started playing by the right rules. As the ship lifted into the stars again, Kalira turned to him. History. Well, remember what you did today. Duran shook his head. History's already written. I just turned the lights back on. And so the man who fell from the sky, a stranger, a carrier of truth, was no longer just a survivor. He became a legend, not for what he destroyed, but for what he chose to remember.